A father accused of killing his two daughters on New Year's Day 2008 was found guilty of capital murder Tuesday by a Dallas County jury. Yaser Said, 65, stood facing forward and looked down as Judge Chika Aniam read out the decision. Amina and Sarah Said were found fatally shot inside a taxicab outside an Irving hotel. Said evaded authorities for 12 years before he was arrested in August 2020 at a Denton County family home. Jurors deliberated for about 3 hours. Said faces an automatic life sentence because prosecutors did not seek the death penalty. He also faces a federal charge of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution for his years on the run. His ex-wife and the mother of the teens, Patricia Owens, watched Said as the judge sentenced him. Owens and her sister, Connie Moggio, entered the courtroom together. The women testified last week. Lawyers pleaded their cases in closing arguments to 12 jurors and 3 alternates for nearly 2 hours Tuesday morning. Said's eyes fixated on the lawyers. But occasionally, he nodded his head and glanced over at the juror's box. Said was the last witness to testify Monday after the 6-day trial. On the stand, he denied killing his daughters and said he loved them. He said he was being followed that night in his taxi and he ran to safety, abandoning his daughters. He said he didn't think anyone would harm Amina and Sarah. Prosecutors Tuesday called his testimony absurd. It is not logical. It doesn't make any sense, prosecutor Brandy Mitchell told jurors. Prosecutor Lauren Black argued the girls told them who the killer was. Prosecutors replayed Sarah's 911 call where she said, "My dad shot me." Owens, the girls' mothers, pressed a tissue to her eyes and her shoulders shook as Sarah's cries rang through the courtroom. A taxi driver found the girls' bodies, bloodied and slumped over, in a cab outside the Omni Mandalay Hotel in Las Colinas, part of Irving. Amina was shot twice and Sarah was shot 9 times. Jurors previously heard from a Louisville high school teacher whom Amina emailed her plans to run away from her father, fearing him. Amina said in the email that Said who would, without any drama or doubt, kill us. The most important witnesses who are not here are Amina and Sarah Said, Mitchell said. They reached out and told friends, family, teachers what was going on. Amina said what would happen. That he will kill us. Sarah said in her 911 call, in her last dying breaths, that it did happen. Defense lawyers said was being followed that night. He said he pulled into a cab stand at a strip club and fled, leaving his gun in the cab. Edgar Ruiz, Amina's then-boyfriend, testified last week he trailed Said's orange jet taxi cab that night. "We all want justice for Amina. And we all want justice for Sarah," said defense attorney Joseph Patton. "We all want to respect the lives that they lived and the lives that they lost, but justice is not convicting an innocent man," Said's lawyer, Baharan News, called the police investigation and prosecution disappointing, ignorant and offensive. The defense team has tried to cast suspicion on the girls' boyfriends, alleging they created the narrative that Amina and Sarah feared their father. Lawyers have argued police botched the investigation by ignoring the girls' boyfriends as suspects and wrongly narrowing in on Said. But one detective testified that they did briefly look at the boyfriends as suspects. In closing statements, Muse emphasized that police did not lift fingerprints from the taxi, test the boyfriends or the car for gunshot residue, or take any other DNA analysis. She also tried to dispute accusations from Owens, who called Said controlling and abusive during their marriage. Owens and her sister, Connie Moggio, entered the courtroom together before closing arguments began. They sat in the second row and Owens pulled a pink packet of pocket tissues out of her purse. Owens did not look at Said as he walked into the courtroom and shook hands with his lawyer. Owens told jurors last week she left Said countless times. And the final time was days before the girls' slayings. Amina, Sarah. Owens and the girls' boyfriends got an apartment in Tulsa but returned to North Texas. Owens divorced Said while he was on the run. Said testified that she lied and disputed accusations he was violent. Said went on the lam and was placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list. He was arrested in August 2020 at a family home in Denton County. Said also faces a federal charge of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Said's son, Islam Said, was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for helping him hide. Said's brother, Yaser Said, got 12 years for the same charge.